We're back. I mean, a little too long. I was out on vacation, but finally we are live. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir.
Blake, I was thinking this might have been the longest amount of time that we have gone without doing a show.
It is not. When LSU was in Omaha last year,
Oh,
during the
you're right.
series,
You're
I
right.
missed almost 2 weeks because every game literally every LSU game in those 2 weeks started at 6. Now we did a couple here and there, but hey, man, it's good to be back.
I don't know if I count that first off season because that was before the show had the audience that it now does. We didn't have our nice big collection and community of fans, but I'm glad that we're back. I'm sure that we're going to take another small break around the 4th of July and whatever, but
No,
dude, a lot happened this weekend. Holy shit.
We're working on the 4th of July.
Why? It's too long for you. We got to immediately get back.
We've missed too many episodes. So we got to work on America's Day. But nevertheless, we are live. Good to be back here with you, Joe. Chris H. in the chat already says that you miss me. Is that true?
No. That's not true.
By the way, took Ben to a Braves game. I, as a Yankees fan, probably should not have done that because my dog is now a Braves fan. I have royally messed up.
What do you mean? Your son is. Oh, I thought you literally meant
all the way home. Could you imagine a 9-hour car ride?
That's not even the closest city. You made a mistake. Yeah, you did make a mistake.
Oh, all the way home.
If he was an Astros fan, it might make a little more sense.
Yeah, we don't like cheaters around here. I mean, that's why we're not Michigan fans, right? So because of Connor Stallions and cheating, right? So nevertheless, we got a lot to discuss. Revenue sharing, the NCAA house case has been approved. We'll discuss on that. We'll do our Tennessee deep dive and Lincoln Riley and USC scared of LSU.
This headline should have gotten more pub. I feel like it did not get a lot of love.
Well, Matt Hayes can't post something at 10:30 at night and think it's going to get massive things, massive ratings. So here we are.
Yeah, there's a couple angles for this one. I think that Lincoln and USC being scared is one of them, and it's trying to pitch it as if it is the broadcast networks and Fox that were altering this decision. I don't think it's that. I think that they don't want to get embarrassed in the first game of the season.
Then why not do it to every other team that plays an opponent in week 1?
Exactly my point. My point.
And by the way, their literal crosstown rival UCLA goes to Baton Rouge in week 3. So I don't.
Well, the argument in the article was that they didn't want their first game of their first Big Ten season to be against an opposing conference on an opposing competing network. But I think that that's BS. They're using it as an excuse.
I also think that there was an underlying thing that nobody saw there. Let me give an example. Both Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley both shared the same age at Trace Armstrong. LSU and USC both had a job opening in the same year. Are you going to sit here and tell me that LSU was not also talking to Lincoln Riley when it came to their job opening? So, look, so many storylines going into this one, but we will discuss on that. But in reference to that, I'm sure we'll both land at the same spot there. Where we might not would be the Tennessee Volunteers in our deep dive here. I don't know what to make of the Vols, really, Joe. I mean, I know that their offseason has been filled with, the Nico Iamaleava case, and then now with the Jaden Rashada stuff, there are rumblings out there that there are administrators across the country that now want the NCAA to have the right to enforce NIL regulations. Getting back on the field, I don't know necessarily what to make of this team, but we'll discuss that here tonight as well.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, and I won't reveal my projection just yet on how I think that the season's going to play out. But I'm in that same boat where I don't really know how I feel because they've got a lot of premier players at important positions. And we said this when we did a defensive line show, they might have the best player in college football on their team.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if that's enough for them to get past some of the huge bumps in the road that they have in their schedule in 2024. So I'm in that same boat as you, man. I don't really totally know where I sit because I think there's a couple different directions that things could go. It doesn't feel as finite as some of the other teams that we've talked about.
Should we be talking about Nico Iamaleava the way that everybody talked about Joe Milton last offseason?
As in hyping him up, yes.
Well, right.
Yes.
I mean, if you remember this time last year, Joe Milton was 4th on the Heisman Trophy odds.
But here's the key difference between the two of them and why I think
No, I know, and you know, I know that we both know. What I'm saying is, what I'm trying to make light of is with everybody saying, oh, Joe, did you see Joe Milton throw an 85-yard pass at the Manning Passing Academy? Maybe Nico is the guy that we should have been talking about the most.
And the biggest piece here is we saw Joe Milton play enough. We saw enough of him making mistakes and making poor reads, and he is the easiest guy for any stat sheet starer that just doesn't want to actually reference the games and the film and just wants to say, well, he completed this many amount of his passes. He was fine. Those who actually watched him play knew he wasn't going to get any better, and he was an older player. Nico's young. And in the little bits, we've seen the flashes. And I think that you should be optimistic about Nico. Any of the hype for Joe Milton was so overplayed. It was so lazy. It was the typical national media that hasn't been caught up with everything, just pushing a narrative because they saw somebody say that he has a big arm and they've seen a couple of clips of him throw, not in a game, but during a workout.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest issue that I have with people that cover this sport. I think there's a lot of people with a lot of followers that have absolutely no idea what they're talking about when it comes to this sport whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Jer Z Bear says, I can't hear you guys, but I know that Joe is wrong. You haven't even said anything yet.
I almost put that on the screen because I thought that was funny. I mean, that could be the tagline for the show. Haven't even listened, but I already know that Joe is wrong.
Sco Doug says Dylan Gabriel will win the Heisman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to rush to put that bet in, but I think that it's a safe pick.
I don't think it's a safe pick. I don't think he can win it.
I don't think he's going to win it, but I think he'll be at the podium. How about that?
Fair. I definitely could see that. Adam says, speaking of beating, what about that hat, Mr. Joe?
I'm going to change the hat during the ad break.
What was the no? We came to the conclusion. Nancy emailed into the show and said that we have
tough, Nancy. I'm sorry. I have to stick to I completely forgot to change my hat. I was wearing. I will not wear that hat for anything else. I was wearing it for another taping, so I forgot to change my hat.
You know what's funny is I actually like this hat because the 1989 Fiesta Bowl was actually the last time Notre Dame won a competent bowl game that was convincing.
And they won a national title. So shut up about that first part. That was their last national.
Yeah, last national title.
And so 2024 is going to be the next one. So you quiet down over there.
Do you really think that Notre Dame can win a national title this year?
I say shit on this show. I don't believe most of it. No, I don't. The realist in me knows that probably won't happen.
That's probably not going to happen. But hey, they probably could be in the playoff because their schedule's weak, and that's why they won't join a conference. Nevertheless, we will probably discuss Notre Dame in our deep dive at some point during this offseason. So, Joe, no time to waste. Let's get to it. We got lots to discuss. We did miss a lot. We're going to have to miss over some stuff like the James Franklin telling,
By the way, I didn't read the full story. He was influencing medical decisions. That shit happens a lot more than people think does. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing.
Yes.
It happened with me in an injury that I suffered. But all I'm saying is that does not surprise me. And I would love to find out more coaches who've done shit like that because it's a big issue in college football.
But did you die?
I didn't, but I had to pay for my own surgery because they didn't want me to get my pec repaired because they didn't want to have to pay for it. There's a whole set. We don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but
I would have made him pay for it. I would have sued the shit out of him.
it wasn't worth it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, look.
Well, it's to that point. I didn't die, so it's like just it's fixed and I'm
no
healthy.
wonder why your left titty's so flappy. You doing
all right. Go to the ad break. Go to the ad break.
Everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share show to all those groups on Facebook. If you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube, like, subscribe, notification bell, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Joe, let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. Players getting paid. We discussed that next. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. We're back. I would be remiss if I didn't say this. Two things, two of the biggest story headlines in sports over this past week, not college football related. Number one, Angel Hernandez, the very, very bad umpire for Major League Baseball, is retired the same day that Ben Ruffino goes to his first Major League Baseball game.
He was scared.
Is it coincidence? I think not. So nevertheless, you're welcome, Major League Baseball fans. Secondly, Louisiana versus Russia this weekend as Dustin Poirier fights Islam Makhachev in UFC 302. I will say, if Louisiana stand up, I will legitimately lose my ever godforsaken mind if he wins this weekend. So the UFC fans, follow us on AYS. We're going to be watching the fight card this weekend. Joe, let's waste no time on this. The NCAA house case has been, I guess, technically approved and moderated over the last, within this past week, which now gives players the option, or teams the option, for TV revenue share across the board to college athletes. I guess with all this being done, what are your thoughts? And I'll start with you on this. What are your thoughts on this case being done and finalized and TV revenue share being a thing?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, immensely complicated situation here. We are I don't even think we can necessarily really fathom the way that college football is going to change because of the ability for schools to now share revenue with players, the cap that's been created, and then more importantly, that $20 million number which teams can go up to pay their players. They can still exceed it with donations, with NIL, with collectives paying players. So there is an opportunity for a lot of money being funneled in to guys. I'm happy that we've gotten to this point. I think the NCAA is really stupid for still trying to find a way to avoid making them employees and still declaring an amateurism, which is insane to me. But from the player perspective, before I talk a little bit about the team stuff, Blake, I'm just glad that we now have at least a little bit of footing. I think that right now we have a foundation to create more consistency with the transfer portal and a little bit less messiness with NIL. And I know that sounds really optimistic, and I know that you're probably going to shoot that down, but I think this moment we're in a better position than we were this time last year.
I just, Joe, look, I hate to continue to vehemently disagree with you on this. Do I agree with you? See, here's what I think that you're doing, and I think it's the right thing to do. Does the logic behind saying that we have footing with this case being in? Yes, I fully agree with that. However, the issue with that, okay, is this from me. It's not going to stop tampering. It's not going to stop the portal. It's not going to stop NIL opportunities because NIL won't stop. Now, will collectives be a thing in 5 years? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But it's not going to stop a booster and a head coach calling said booster and saying, hey, I need $500,000 to go get 2 kids. It's not going to stop that. So what I think people are trying to say is maybe it'll stop majority of kids because they're making a lot of money from going places. But the problem I have with that is I don't think that this is any footing in reference to what everybody is complaining about, right? Joe, what is everybody complaining about? NIL and the portal, right?
Well,
so,
more specifically, tampering and kids leaving after a short period.
Well, not even that. I mean, like high school players, like Chad Simmons came out and said the number 1 player in 2026 who might reclassify, and Jakeem Stewart is already having conversations about 7-figure deals. I mean, like this isn't like that's what people are wanting to stop, right? That's what people are getting aggravated about. I don't see a solution in this House case that stops that. Right, like that's the complaints that we have, right? Like TV revenue share, like, look, you'll figure all that out, right? I think that there are a lot of very smart people that can figure that out. But there are 2 big things that I have an issue with. One I just discussed, but here's number 2. Everybody continues to tell me that I'm wrong, but until I see this be lifted or something happen, I don't know. Joe, Title IX is still a thing.
The Title IX aspect of this is going to get complicated. And what's kind of been thrown out there is that some of these administrators, and I don't think this is going to work, but some of these administrators are saying it refers to equality and opportunity and not in payment, because their argument is we can't pass off college football players their share of money. We can't just pass that on to somebody else if it's not their
that's
money
what
that
they've
they
been
earn.
doing.
Well, that's the whole point with this, and I think that we're going to see a real serious restructure in college football.
But Title IX is not in reference to revenue, correct? I have heard what people are trying to say. It's about fair and opportunity. That's why you have to have an equal number of sports, male and female, right? Like they have separated the fairness or what they believe to be equality, correct?
Yeah, and this is why I think that there's this pitch to shift changing the roster sizes so that more scholarships are going to go to other sports. So the rosters are going to probably get smaller for football. There might be more walk-ons. There might be an elimination of walk-ons. Scholarships for football is probably going to go down so that they could end up evening this out in one way or another.
That is the stupidest thing that they could ever do. Hey, here's a novel decision. You ready?
Yeah.
I got it. You ready? Cut the sports that aren't generating male or female. Let the schools decide.
Well, they should just turn them into club sport. Like it should be like a D1 club sport.
That's my point. If the school doesn't, and I'm going to say multiple of these sports. If let's just say Notre Dame, LSU, okay, the 2 schools that we root for, okay. And I'm not Notre Dame because he's got the Go Tigers hat on. It's actually flip-flop here for people who are.
You are a Notre Dame fan. Go Irish, right?
No, I hope
I'm going to clip that.
Okay. But my point, you get my, hey, how about this? Forget it, the equality. Equality means nothing. Here's what the truth was about all of this and why everybody just lost. Equality just lost in court. Equality lost in court in the sense of you have been giving millions, hundreds of millions, worldwide or nationwide, I should say, hundreds of millions of dollars a year to other sports that don't generate money because of on the back of one sport.
Right.
It's time to pay the penance. The bottom line for me is if you want all of this to work, women's golf, women's tennis, men's golf, men's tennis. Okay, if those are the sports, hypothetically, just throwing that out there, not saying, there's a reason, Joe, that we call track and field Olympic sports.
Yeah.
Okay, like club level sports have not been bad for most programs. All I am saying is, okay, the bottom line is give the schools the authority to cut these sports, because what is the country telling you?
I think that they do have what you're
No,
saying
they
is
don't have, no, they don't have the authority.
oh, you're saying that there would be no restriction with Title IX.
I'm proposing giving schools lift Title IX when it comes, because it is of my opinion. Now, women, okay, that hear this would say, well, Blake is a bigot. I'm not a bigot, because women's basketball is kicking the dog shit out of men's basketball right now from a viewership standpoint, right?
Right. They would
It's
still
kicking its
remain
ass.
in
Hold
the
on one
purview.
second. It's kicking its ass in NIL. Livy Dunn, Angel Reese, name whoever, the Cavender twins, they are beating the dog shit out of men's sports. Why? Because more people want to view it and watch it. The bottom line is, let's have fair equality in reference to capitalism. That's what gets missed in all this. Why is it, Joe, that the 85 scholarship players on your football team should be responsible for all the other club sports?
Well, that's where now I think that, and I think a lot of administrators agree with what you're talking about, where the football players have earned all this money. It has funded all these country club sports, men's and women's, that really should not have been getting that funding. And now that money has to go directly to the football programs, any basketball teams that were making that much money, any women's basketball teams that were making that much money will get those funds. I do, not to direct the conversation backward too much, I want to come back to, though, what you said earlier in talking about how this isn't going to change NIL. That's very true. That's absolutely true. But I think that what's now important, that there is going to be this settlement. It is an effort to get legislation in place, right? With the ability to get legislation.
They hope it is, but yes, right. I agree. Right.
That to me is going to help push forward. One of the things that I have screamed about that we've disagreed on is the ability for the NCAA to put in restrictions and to put in guidelines of saying,
okay, can I raise my hand? What restrictions?
I'm talking about, one of the things that's been discussed is that NIL is going to be a lot more closely investigated, that it has to have some sort of proven marketing impact. So if the Ohio State Collective signs a kid, a booster owns a local car dealership and signs the kid, he needs to actively fulfill his contract and do those things so that there just aren't players who are getting money handed to them.
All right, well, let me stop right there. You can't do that.
Yes, he can.
No, you cannot.
Why can't they?
Because the O'Bannon case legitimately ruled on that. And what I've been saying from the very beginning, which nobody will listen to, legitimately, the O'Bannon case in the memo says, when it comes to name, image, and likeness, if two parties are enacted, contracts supersede. The issue is that there was no contract in the NCAA football game. Joe, if I break my contract with an employer, can they fire me? Sure. It is a capitalistic thing. If I or you go into an NIL deal, it's absolutely pissing outside. So if I go bye-bye, it's not because I'm mad at you. It's because the weather. Of course, the day it doesn't rain at all, and then the day I come back, it's pissing cats and dogs outside.
Right.
But you can't do that, because if I'm giving a player money and I don't feel like he's in a breach of contract and I do nothing about it, Joe, somebody's going to take that to court and is going to win.
Obviously that there's going to be. Okay, so this is another thing too that gets brought up with this, is that a lot of the wording in this stuff. Look, the biggest winner is the lawyers. It's always the lawyers. They're trying to set this up so that they can have more cases to defend in the future. So I completely agree with what you're saying, that yes, there's going to be more lawsuits. But
now, can you stop collectives? If you would have came into this argument and said, Blake, we need legislation that collectives cannot be a thing.
I don't think collectives are that bad. I think
unregulated
and unmarketed. I know that there's some really, really bad ones, but the ones that are unregulated, that there's no attention paid to them or monitoring and making sure that they're doing appropriate and real business, That's what gets missed here. People think it's just a fund you put money in and then it spits out players. That's not what a collective's supposed to be. It's supposed to be money going in order to pay players to do marketing opportunities, to market things in the local community. That's what the purpose of it is.
Fair, but it's not what but here's the thing though. When you donate, because you're donating, the school technically is a nonprofit, owns that money.
Well, you're not doing. There's a difference between donating to a collective and donating to a school. School's technically not related to the collective.
Donating to a collective. I'm going too far into the weeds. Yeah. My only point in this is I get what they're trying to do. And the truth is, I back them on probably 90% of what they're saying. Actually, I agree. Like, hey, let's find legislation. The problem with is that every time that you come up with a solution, Joe, easily anybody with a legal background can literally legitimately look at this and say, you can't do that. Joe, I don't have, I mean, I'm not Johnny Cochran on the stand. If the glove doesn't fit, you must have quit. But I have enough to know in my past and background that, Joe, we can sit here and debate. But these are like, for example, all these cases going in front of the NCAA is losing. You think that if somebody says, hey, or the NCAA comes down and says, hey, we're investigating because this kid didn't market the way that we like, it's your own perception. Like,
I will agree with this, though. There's a lot of, it's subjective. There's a lot of ambiguity in how things can be perceived. I totally agree with that. That's what's going to lead to problems.
To the spirit of what I was trying to say, what I was trying to end with is this. Call it NIL, call it Bourbon Street hot dog water for all I care. The legitimate thing of what people are complaining about is that now that it's out in the open, that boosters are paying for players to come to their school. That's what they want to stop. That's completely out there. Well, okay, if you hide it, it's just going to go back to the same way it was, but it's never going to go back to the way that it was. You cannot stop a booster in today's world now that the O'Bannon case is over, unless, there's no way I can see this happening, the Ed O'Bannon case goes back in front of the Supreme Court and we have some kind of legislation that happens there. Now, the final thing, at least that I will say with this, I am glad that football players are finally getting paid their worth.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest piece is that, and I let in with that. I am so glad that these kids are getting their money now. Okay, where is this going?
I bet you, because I'm not going to bet the show this. There's too many people that watch this. I bet you every single dollar in my savings account that TV contracts start going down or leveling out. They're going to. And you know what?
No, they're going to go up.
No, Ross Dellinger reporting that the SEC discussing now moving to 9 games. Okay, and in this piece, he talks about there being some like a 10-year contract. So you know how the NFL has a union where the contract stays the same for about 5 to 7 to 10 years, right? I think that they're about, now that they have to pay players, watch this shit start leveling out.
I don't agree with that at all. I think
I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it, but look, I don't mean this in the wrong way. Greg Sankey's spoon feeding this to Ross, and Ross is spitting this out on Twitter, which, quite honestly, how can you say that Ross is wrong here?
Yeah, okay, I understand what you're pushing, but through multiple layers of addition here, there's multiple waves that this is going to happen. Revenue starts to get shared now. Players start to get paid more. The product on the field is going to get increasingly better because there's going to be parity amongst the top programs, only the top. We're not talking about Indiana suddenly becoming a powerhouse out of nowhere unless Saudi Arabia starts funding them or something like that, which would be kind of hilarious, but also disturbing. But my point is that there's going to be parity at the top. And I think that there's going to be a lot of really good football teams leading to more eyes, more attention. The video games coming back, sports betting in college sports is going to become increasingly more prevalent. That is something that's around the corner that we're probably going to start seeing sponsorships with these sports books, with universities, and with conferences, I think that the growth for college football is going to be rapid. Even we are, as fans, acknowledge that this sport is big. But for the average NFL fan or just the average Joe Schmo that puts the game on when it's the national championship, I think more people are going to be tapped in and tuning in than in the past.
We'll see. You spoke about the video game. A couple of people are talking about it here, that they actually let some of these Rudy Poos play it, even though I've been begging for it.
Not big enough yet, Blake.
Have you seen some of this game footage that people are releasing now?
There's no footage that's
it just got released. I didn't know if you had
Wait.
an argument. It's some people are posting that some of it got leaked, like the opening screen. Basically, it's like Michigan. Okay. It's Donovan Edwards.
Oh, I see it. I see
it. Yeah.
It's just the home screen.
Just the home screen.
I will say though, from the article that
did you see that most people are like, "Hey, man, this is not Madden." Like they really gave you, dude. And they're saying like Road to Glory, you don't go through high school, which I actually kind of like a little bit. I don't like the TD nature of having to go back through high school.
I thought that. Well, so this is what I'm pissed off about. I didn't want the stupid fucking cutscenes. Pardon my language. What
do you mean?
In Madden, well, it used to be 2K who started this. But in Madden, did the stupid
the GM, all that stuff.
The story mode thing.
Are they doing that?
Yeah, it says there's a 10 to 20 hour experience where there's cutscenes and stuff. I'm telling you, Road to Glory is going to be terrible. It's not going to be fun. I'm telling you, it is not going to. You're going to play the first 10 minutes of it, and everybody's going to put it down. It's not going to be fun. But I'm not worried about that. You know, I liked Road to Glory, but I think that what was talked about is how the Dynasty mode, that there was a very immense attention to detail, and it's similar to what was the way that it was structured in NCAA 14. But you also mentioned here, I think the biggest thing that I'm juiced up about is they talked about how the dev team that they put together was like all people that were gung-ho about it. The Madden dev team's a bunch of dipshits that they're just like, oh, we need another play to win game. We need to put this together so people buy it.
I don't know, dude. I still think that if I get a quarterback that's at LSU and Road to Glory or my favorite school, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be pretty gung-ho about it.
Dude, the cutscenes are going to ruin it though. Like, I don't want to.
You know what? You can end all this. You know what you can do?
What?
If people have a problem with it, just put the fast forward through it.
Yeah, but it's going to do that whole stupid thing like they did with Madden. Actually did a Road to Glory thing where you started
there's cutscenes in MLB The Show, and more people play Road to the Show than
suck though. Those are so stupid. They're so those cutscenes are there's no consequence to the decisions that happen.
Don't you ever say that Road to the Show.
I love Road to the Show. It's all I play, but the cutscenes are stupid.
By the way.
Yeah.
Get home. Okay. 5-year-old is obsessed with baseball. First pitch. He's with the Pirates. Okay. Center fielder for the Pirates. Okay. I think I told you this. He had 94 home runs or something like that in year one. His speed's like 117. It's ridiculous how good this kid has become.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, I help him a lot. Okay. But he hits. I do everything else, but he hits. Dude hit a ball 119 miles an hour off the bat, and it was perfect. How this kid continues to hit perfect baseballs, I have no idea. In reference to the game, though, man, I'm just ready for the game to be here, dude. Like, I'm just ready to play. I'm ready to be Dynasty. And I'm ready for us to sit here at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday night and me and you playing like a Dynasty mode.
Well, wait, did you see apparently, I don't know if it was a rumor or confirmed, apparently there's no cross console for Dynasty. There's cross console for like if we wanted to play each other online, but I don't think you can do cross console for Dynasty mode.
Huh?
I think that I might be like out of my mind, but I'm pretty sure that I saw that was
then they royally messed up. But can I tell you something? As someone who doesn't play with like people online ever, I don't need you. I legitimately don't. No crossplay for Dynasty at the start. Okay, but they said it will come later. Okay, they're probably going to try to work out some bugs. That's what every year what the Road to the Show, MLB The Show does. So you can't do it in the beginning, and then about 2 weeks later you can do it.
Well, before we move on to the next subject, the one thing I did find really interesting that they put in this wear and tear system so that like, and I think that's cool. I think it's very realistic that if like a guy takes a lot of hits, and this is very much more related to
I
college.
turn injuries off.
It's not so much injuries that like if your quarterback gets beat to hell, his throw power is going to go down throughout the game. They're going to have to fix that at some point. But I'm telling you right now, if I'm playing somebody in a dynasty, I'm gonna try to hurt your players. Like I will sell out, engage 8 every single play. I'm gonna pull New Orleans Saints. What year was that with the bounty system? I'm gonna do that.
Don't ever bring that up on the show ever again.
What is it too? Is it too close to home?
Yeah, it's very too close to home. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Maybe that's cool. Maybe it's not.
Yeah, it won't be.
I turn injuries off. Like everybody's like, you can't do that. It's that's not realistic. I'm like, while you're playing a video game, you're telling me what's not realistic.
Yeah, you usually got to adjust the sliders.
Yeah, I put them down in reference to injuries. Like I'm not doing, like, I want to have fun. Like that's what I'm there for. I don't want to be in the fourth overtime with UAB because I got it on Heisman and I can't score a touchdown late in the game.
Well, one of the things that was talked about was one of the people who played it spoke to somebody else who played it, and apparently his quarterback got so beat to shit that it put his true freshman backup quarterback into the game. So that's like what the consequences are.
I mean, that's kind of cool though.
It's cool, but I'm telling you right now, people are going to, I'm joking saying what I'm saying, but people are going to do what I'm saying, where they're just going to try and injure your top player. It's a little messed up, a little too realistic.
You know what else it does? It makes you like weeks that you're playing like UAB or
yeah, put your backup in.
You'll put your backups in, play the first half with them. Dude, I'm just so excited to play, man. Like I'm so freaking ready to go. All right. Let's talk about our good friends over at Home Field Apparel. We got this Tennessee deep dive that we need to do. We'll do that next. Stay with us.
Ruffino and Joe Show is brought to you by Home Field Apparel, which is the best, without a doubt, premium collegiate apparel brand that is out there. They have over 150 different colleges that you can choose from, whether you're an Illinois fan or a Rutgers fan, maybe you're an LSU fan like Blake, or maybe you're an Alabama fan, whatever it is, even Idaho. They have so many different designs for so many different football programs that I can guarantee you're going to find some great stuff to help root for your favorite team. I've already gotten my Notre Dame stuff. Blake has his LSU stuff. Make sure you head on over to homefieldapparel.com to check out your team's collection of clothing apparel that they have on the website. And when you do so, when you check out, make sure you use promo code RuffinoJoe to get 15% off your order. That is RUFFINO, Ruffino Joe. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com and get your college gear today.
I think it's funny at these SEC meetings that John Calipari walks out of a bathroom and like Pete Thamel and all these dudes are like right on him. So apparently at the SEC meeting, John Calipari made a joke in reference to, can I wash the water on my hands be dry before y'all start asking me questions?
Why is Calipari there?
It's all coaches. The SEC meetings is usually everybody.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's funny. He goes, basically, I'm reading here. Can I just take a piss?
That's a great quote.
That's a fantastic quote. All right. Joe, we continue down our path of usually top 30, top 35 teams in college football. And doing our deep dives tonight, we go to Rocky Top. You'll always be. Hopefully, our good friend cousin Shane's watching the show here tonight, but we go to Knoxville to talk about the Tennessee Vols. I kick it off to you. What are your thoughts about the upcoming season for Tennessee?
Yeah, what I said earlier still stands. I think that this Tennessee team is loaded with talent, but have some holes in their roster. They make them a huge question mark. There's a lot of questions that come in with this Tennessee team, and I'm optimistic. I think that they're going to be really good. I think the way that they were able to be really explosive in a lot of games last year, and the only ones that they struggled in were against their tougher opponents, which were Alabama, they were Georgia. They still looked really good in every other game that they played in. Them having James Pierce Jr., the best player in college football, is going to carry them defensively. They have a couple of losses in their secondary. I think that they're still a well-recruited enough team that defensively they won't be super weak. On offense, their O-line brings back a lot. And them adding Lance Hurd, I think, is a really nice, strong piece for their offensive line. A kid who just, and I'm sure you're going to talk about him in a second, who just couldn't really get on the field at LSU, gets an opportunity to here play at Tennessee. Their receiving room is fantastic. Squirrel White, Brew McCoy, Chris Brazel, who they got from Tulane. And then I've got a guy who I think is going to break out, their redshirt freshman tight end. No, I was going to say Ethan Davis. Ethan Davis is a really, really fun player, and I think that he could turn some heads this year. If Nico takes the step that we all think that he can, they will be in the top half of teams in the SEC. It's not really a lofty goal. They're going to be good. It's just, can they beat the tough teams on their schedule, which they seemingly struggle to do every single year?
So I agree with you in reference to, okay, Tennessee, you don't know necessarily what to make of them. Now, having Cooper Mays back, I think is a big deal. Adding a guy like Lance Hurd, it's going to be interesting to see if Lance can play that left tackle position. You know, look, he played right at LSU. I don't think, and look, I think the kid is a first-round pick at right tackle. I do not think that he is a first-round pick at left tackle unless he shed some weight. He's athletic. He is a bulldozer. Kid's a phenomenal pickup. I agree with you. Chris Braswell is a guy at Tulane that I saw a lot. I like him. I think wide receiver, they're going to be good. I actually think they'll be okay at running or at on the offensive line and what they've added at receiver. The issue for me is I just don't think that their secondary is great. And what makes me have pause, okay, in reference to them, I think that when I look at their defensive line, Joe, they have 4 defensive linemen that are juniors or above. They have 3 seniors. They have multiple guys that are seniors in their front 7. Of the 6 or 7 guys, 6 of them are seniors or above. Guys like James Pierce, okay? James Pierce is the only junior in that group. Everybody else returned, but they're secondary. Now, look, they added Jacoby Thomas. Okay, they added Jermon McCoy into the mix at secondary. What can those guys be, I think, is an ultimate thing. But I think that they have the pieces that if you looked up at the end and you saw Tennessee either competing for or right around the SEC championship game, I would not be surprised. If Nico Iamaleava, okay, I am Leva. Okay, that's
just call him Nico. Let's
all right.
Let's just play it safe.
Nico, if Nico does what we think that he can do, or what everybody thinks that he can do, Joe, I think the floor for this team could be 10-2. I do think that they have a very interesting situation where, look, they go to Oklahoma, then they're at Arkansas. I don't think that that's easy early in the season with a young team and a young quarterback. But, Joe, I look at them. They got Florida at home. They go Alabama at home. They got Kentucky at home. They got Mississippi State at home. So you have a lot of home games in a row here before you got to go on the road to Georgia. I do think that their schedule is favorable. And after Georgia, they got UTEP and they got Vandy. I mean, they're more talented than State. I think they're more talented than Kentucky. I mean, the Alabama game is going to be like, hey, a real big test for them at home. Florida, yeah. Arkansas, yeah. And we don't really know what we don't know about Oklahoma coming into the league. Joe, I legitimately, if somebody came to me right now and said Tennessee's 11-1, I could see that. I could see the argument. If you also came to me and said that Tennessee is going to be 8-4, I could also see the argument.
So I think with this, though, that you just brought up, and I always like to do every time we do these, I have a category that I like to write down in my notes. Like key games, losable games, meaning games that they're either going to lose, that they're important for them to come out with a strong record. I see every other game as a win on the rest of their schedule. And the 4 that I wrote down were Oklahoma, Alabama, Kentucky, and Georgia. Those are the 4 game-breaking ones. And that's not even a tough draw. That's not even a tough draw compared to some of these other teams that we've talked about. So for any of the deficiencies that we could talk about on the roster, which there aren't many, there's a couple little holes, and we're a little, I think, uneasy about where the secondary sits because it hasn't been great under Heupel. And, how does the running back room look with Sampson being the lead guy and Jalen Wright being gone? We could talk about those deficiencies.
Right.
I don't see a way that they don't go 9-3. Like Heupel would have to really shit the bed for them to go worse than 9-3.
Or we get back to what we talk about in this show way too much. You have a young quarterback in his second start in the beginning of the season, and sometimes kids need to develop. Right? Like, I mean, Joe, it's not out of the realm of possibility that a young quarterback doesn't play up to his potential or what Nico would be next year. Right? Like, I mean, and so like you're breaking into quarterback that is going to have struggles and issues. Joe, he's going to see things against Alabama that he's never seen. He's going to see things against Georgia that he's never seen in his life before. And I got to be real with you. Everybody, we look at this, and Joe, I'm going to be real with you. North Carolina or NC State was still a 10-3 team last year. Like, I know that they're better than them. I think that they will beat them. I'm not saying that. NC State won 10 games last year because how exotic they were defensively. Like I'm not saying this because you're here, but just stay with me. Like Sam Hartman might be one of the more smarter, intelligent quarterbacks that we've seen. And I think NC State threw things at him that he was just like, dude, what the frick is this? I've never seen this before. So I agree with your statement. The only pushback that I give would be, you got a young quarterback. And if he play, like, how do I want to give it? Could he Joe Burrow this thing in 18? Yes. Could he Bryce Young this thing in year 1?
Yeah.
Yes. Right? And I think they have the pieces around him, okay, that they can win. Now, I think their guard position, I'm really interested to see. Like, I mean, they didn't get a lot of push in their spring game. A lot of people were like, oh, well, our defensive line's really good. Okay, well, there's going to be a lot of good defensive lines that you play, right? Like, it's not just yours. I think this team, though, and I think Heupel has sneakily, I don't even know if that's a word, done this. The offensive-minded head coach might have built a really strong front seven defensively. And if you can control the line of scrimmage, you can win a lot of games. I don't know, but one thing that I am interested about this Tennessee team more than any team in the country, how does Heupel use the radios and the helmets with a young quarterback? I think that is they are the most intriguing offense to see how they do things with the radio and the helmets than anybody. I'm going to bring up one player, though, that you mentioned. I do think Mike Matthews can play. I think Chris Braswell was one of the biggest, like, slept-on additions in the country. I don't think people realize how good that kid is.
Very good football player. Very good
football player. Brew McCoy comes back, a senior. Like, Squirrel White comes back. Dude, they are absolutely freaking loaded with really good players offensively and a lot of experience, man. Like, this team is, like, anybody that sees Tennessee on their schedule outside of Georgia would be like, man, I don't want to really see them.
I think that plays into why anyone on the thinking about what Nico does this upcoming year, anyone who sits in that boat of wondering where he's going to go. You know, does he take a leap forward? Does he have a big first year as a starter like Bryce Young, like you talked about, or does he fall victim to the DJU situation where he has a crazy, insane single game that he plays as a true freshman and then just doesn't improve, just stays the same guy? I think that Nico will improve. I can't
see that happening with Heupel.
Right. I don't think that is going to happen at all because of who's coaching him and because of all the weapons around him. What killed DJU is because the fact that there was coaching turnover, coordinator turnover, roster turnover, all those things did not favor him.
He went elsewhere and stayed the same, though.
Okay, well, my whole point here is that he went to multiple places where he didn't necessarily have an environment to succeed and to improve. Nico has one of the best situations to get better and for him to have a first great year. I don't think he needs to be an All-American. I don't think he needs to be an All-SEC player. I don't think he needs to do any of that. I think he just needs to be slightly above average and to be a little ballsier than Joe Milton and get the ball out quicker than Joe Milton. The reason why their offense was fine, but stagnated in games where they played well-coached
Like
defenses,
Missouri.
Georgia, Missouri, Alabama, was because Joe Milton, in an offense that required him to get the damn ball out quickly, he held onto the ball way too long. It's something that nobody wanted to talk about last year. I think that Nico's a little bit more natural. I think that Nico is going to be able to overplay any of those concerns. I also just want to add in here, as much as Nico's important, his development, I think James Pierce Jr.'s development is also super important for their success because this kid is still getting better and his ceiling is super high. There is a chance he could have a Will Anderson type season statistically if the SEC isn't prepared to go against him. And I think that there's going to be a world where they see his talent, maybe they overlook him a little bit, and he could really light up the stat sheet a couple of games because what he is going to turn into this upcoming year, I think, is going to really, really shock some people.
Not only that, look, their receivers last year would get wide open and would have drops. The issue is they're wide ass open, right? Like if you're a team like, oh, well, they didn't score because they dropped the ball. Well, okay. What happens when they don't? And I think that becomes a big thing of like, hey, man, they have talent around them. We'll see. Let me ask you a hypothetical, and I use this all pun intended, hypothetical.
Jesus Christ.
Do they slow it down because their front seven is going to be really good?
What do you mean by slow it down?
Does Heupel look in the mirror and say, maybe I want to slow this offense down just a little because I can give my defense a break that might be really good in that front seven? Like, for an example, do you want to tire out James Pierce before he gets halfway through a third quarter?
No, that's a good point. I just feel like that's so out of his identity, though. You know, like I feel like he's a smart coach. He's going to make the decision that's going to help his team. But I also just so used to the spread out attack you offense that he's ran and ran to success. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Because here's the truth. Yeah, he did that because he didn't have the athletes. Well, now you do. And now you have a roster that could be very competitive. You got to stop. You got to worry more about what's best for your team to get you in the situation that they need to be in. Stop. Like, it was cool when you did it at UCF. It was cool when you did it the first couple of years, right? But what's the truth? Okay, the truth was maybe he should have slowed things down when he had Hendon Hooker and maybe calm some people down a little bit. Go all the time isn't always the best. I mean, no. Joe, the teams that we've seen do that have failed defensively. And they haven't work very good defensively.
It doesn't work as much as it used to. I just
name a team outside of LSU that was hurry up like that won it all.
It's a good question. I think the part of that though is what you're talking about with it's almost an indirect reason why it doesn't work because the teams that do it usually don't have a good enough of an offensive line. They're maybe missing a couple pieces at important positions on offense so that when it finally came nut cutting time and they had to play somebody real, that was the result, that they weren't athletic enough. They weren't talented enough to compete with those teams, but they were even enough with the rest. Like I think of Oregon's a good example, like they always come to mind of like when when Chip Kelly was there and he was leading that team and they ran the up tempo stuff. It was a lot of speed, but then once they got facing some physical teams, they got their asses kicked. But I see what you're saying with Heupel, and I kind of do wonder, is this the same offense that we're used to seeing, or are there some adjustments?
How much is the radio and the helmet affected? I mean, who knows, man? I mean, he can do the same exact thing by just telling Nico something. I'm not telling you to run it down to 0 or 1. I'm telling you to run it down to 15. Right? Like, stop snapping the ball at 20-something seconds left on the clock. Like, that's so stupid.
Yeah. I don't think that they need to. And it also does come down to how do the first few games go. Do they have a good rhythm? Do they know that they can trust everything to work as efficiently as we're projecting?
Right.
They might have to rely back on it at some point.
I do think that, look, they're not in the same realm as Georgia, but they've gotten a lot better. And I do think that Tennessee under Heupel is in the right direction, facing the right direction, and going in the right direction. The question starts becoming with him, Joe, when do they start getting over or getting back to the expectations that they have? Right. And look, if they're 8-4, would I be completely surprised? Maybe a little. If they're 11-1, would I be surprised? Yeah, maybe, but not completely. Because again, I can make the argument legitimately that they can beat everybody on their schedule besides Georgia. If we're just looking on paper,
I think their ceiling and their floor is the same. I think it's 9-3. If they go 8-4, that means
who are the other two teams that they lose to?
I don't think that they're going to beat Alabama. I don't think that they're going to beat Georgia.
Oh shit, they can beat it. Alabama's got more question marks than them.
I don't agree with that. That's still a really talented roster. That's still a really, really talented
Who's
roster.
their starting center? Who's their starting? Who's their starting right tackle? Oh, I got one for you. Who's their entire starting defensive line?
They're not replacing their whole defensive line. They're a team that also is good
they had
for
two guys that got drafted, and they legitimately had got the ball run down their.
We're not doing an Alabama deep dive right now. Okay, we're talking about Tennessee. Look, the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, missing Caleb Downs is not a big deal.
Say they beat Alabama, it doesn't mean that.
No, all I'm saying is that
we can good for a dumb loss. Is what I'm trying to say. Heupel's probably good for like maybe one good dumb loss. Right, like I'm not saying
Florida's
that
curb stomped in Knoxville. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, the coaches that haven't been at the premier level as long. Heupel's going into year 4 now. He hasn't been around as long as some of these other coaches. They tend to have one dumb loss. I think that's something that's constantly overlooked, and I think that's certainly possible. And it's going to be tough sledding for them to beat both Oklahoma and Kentucky. Those are two hard games.
I can see them splitting that. But my only argument is I can make an argument for them beating Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
I can make an argument for them beating Kentucky. By the way, Kentucky's got to go on the road. It's one of their first home games.
Sure.
I mean, first away games.
The main thing I was trying to say is that 8-4 is a failure. Like I would be really, really disappointed if they go 8-4. That means that they really like shit the bed in multiple games.
Or it means some teams really might have been really good.
I just don't know who that would be. Mississippi State,
Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky went all in the portal. That defense is a terrier. Okay, I mean, Kalen DeBoer is a really good head coach, and you got to face Alabama. I mean, you got Georgia on the schedule. I mean, it all depends on how you lose, not who you lose to, right? Like, let me give an example. An 8-4 Tennessee might be better than a 10-2 Utah.
Yeah, but not in. That's not relevant for. It's relevant for like playoff conversations. It's not relevant for. Did you meet your expectations?
Created equally. I mean,
you're right, but if we're talking about 8-4, we're not talking about 8-4 in different conferences.
We legitimately said that Kentucky could get to the surface of being a playoff team. Alabama and Kalen DeBoer just went to a national championship. Georgia is Georgia. I mean, those are 3 right there.
9-3. That's my whole point. Is 9-3 if everything goes according to plan.
We'll see. All right, tomorrow, correct? We're back live tomorrow.
Yeah, we should be.
Double shows here.
And back to normal.
Back to normal. All right. Maybe we'll do another deep dive. Oh, we still got DBs we got to talk about.
Yeah, I think we're doing DBs tomorrow unless there's breaking news or something.
Let's hope there is. Oh, let's just get done with this list. All right, we'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a good one. Peace.